What's going on fellas, it's Nikote. Sorry for the lagginess in the intro there. I don't know what the hell is going on with gaijin servers as of late, but the replay system is still garbage and I really wish I had been screen recording that at the time, but what are you gonna do? Anyway, welcome to the motherfucking Red Skies update, and more importantly welcome to the Sea Vixen. I actually bought this plane just hoping that it would be good, and fortunately, it turned out that this plane is awesome. I see a lot of people talking about how boring the playstyle is, and frankly I really disagree. Stats wise, I'm kind of torn on this plane. If it goes up in BR, it's going to get its clock cleaned every match by yaks and harriers, and yet I think it's a bit overpowered at its BR. If you don't know already, the Sea Vixen does not have any guns, just fire streak or red top missiles for air-to-air armament, along with bombs or low penetration rocket pods for ground RB or committing the sin of ground pounding in air RB. It has both a tracking radar and a radar warning receiver, both of which we'll talk more about in a second. Its flight performance is above average for its current BR of 8.3. It turns a little worse than a Sabre or MiG, but out-accelerates both of them and has a higher top speed. I have actually hit Mach in this thing, but only just so. It was literally Mach 1.00 and it was at a very high altitude while diving. All that aside, let's just hop into how you should play this plane. First thing to note, and it should be self-explanatory if you have any experience with jets, do not use the fire streaks. I call them brown streaks because they're shit. Just stick to the red tops, and you'll be fine. They're not great missiles, but they're good enough. And then fuel. I like to stick to minimum fuel on just about any jet I fly, Sabres, MiGs, Itenders, all of them. The only time I would suggest taking more fuel is on Spain, because the map is fucking massive. I especially recommend taking minimum fuel because you don't have afterburners, so there's really no need for more than 7 minutes of fuel, especially since you burn less fuel at altitude. Speaking of altitude, the first thing you should be doing when you get in a match is getting altitude. The Sea Vixen climbs well for its BR, and the playstyle almost requires you to be at about 4,000 to 5,000 meters, or 13,000 to 16,000 feet. Sometimes I like to pick off bombers while at this height, since letting them live usually means that they'll climb to space after their teammates die. You'll usually see Tu-4s, Tu-14s and IL-28s at about 6,000 meters, though the latter almost always either play very high or very low, acting as ground attackers. The best course of action is to stay as far away while you're not in a good position to send a missile their way, then turn around when they get about 3.5 to 4 kilometers behind you. At that point, you can slave a red top to your radar by tracking them with the radar and then warming up a red top. And because of the high altitudes they're likely to be at, you can fire the red top at about 3 kilometers for the big bulky Tu-4s and Tu-14s, and 2.5 for the more maneuverable IL-28s. For Canberras or B-57s it's gonna be more like 2 kilometers since they are more maneuverable. Though bear in mind that all of these distances are about the maximum where I would fire, and a closer shot is preferable so long as the gunners don't open fire on you. Though again, this is a concept you should be familiar with if you have experience using air-to-air missiles. Now, the juicy stuff, and what you're all here for. Fighter combat. You should start by looking for people that aren't paying attention. In most matches this is just going to be hey-4s, but in low BR matches, your good acceleration and high top speed is going to scare the living shit out of F9 F2s and F9 F5s or LA-15s or 200s who didn't even know they were close enough to be engaged by you. Warm up a red top and begin to dive. Diving will give your missile some extra speed, which will make it a lot deadlier. Lock the enemy and try and move them closer to the bottom of your bore sight, which is the big gray circle you see when you turn the missile on. You can maintain a lock a little bit outside of the bore sight, but if your prey isn't paying attention this shouldn't be necessary. You'll have to be the judge of when to fire the missile based on your altitude, but usually the Goldilocks zone is about 2.2 to 1.3 kilometers, and again, a closer shot is preferable, but in this case I wouldn't get any closer than about 0.7 kilometers because not only are your enemies going to start to hear you, but the red top is also kind of a chungus missile and it takes every missile about a half second to actually start tracking after it comes off the rails, so you don't want to be too close. Or else the missile will be too fat to maneuver into the target. If your enemy is flying perpendicular to you, the closest distance I would fire a red top would be about 2 kilometers away, and you should be trying to pull lead on a shot like that to save some maneuvering for the missile. Getting any closer and or not pulling lead is liable to have the missile not be able to maneuver into them or not track at all. The hardest part of playing the Sea Vixen, really, is learning to disengage despite the confidence you may have in the aircraft to get a kill. Almost all of my deaths in the Vixen were because I thought I'd have enough energy to get a kill on enemy 1 while dodging enemy 2. Because of your acceleration and maneuverability, it's okay to disengage when you see fit and fly away while coming up with a new plan as the battle unfolds. Don't get greedy. Now, let's talk dogfighting. Despite the Sea Vixen's serviceable turning ability, I highly discourage it unless there are few enemies left and the plane you wish to dogfight has a very present numerical disadvantage in the amount of planes that are currently dogfighting, and the enemy is not focused on killing you specifically. A good example of this was the clip I showed in the intro to this video. You may not have seen it, but the only planes left on our team were all Sea Vixens, so we really had no choice but to dogfight. This is because of one of the Sea Vixen's few flaws, and the biggest one. The lack of guns. It really will inhibit your ability to fight effectively, especially if you don't have teammates. It is nearly impossible to clutch in this plane. As long as your enemy knows what they are doing and what they're dealing with, almost any plane will have your shit in a 1v1. As with any plane added in a new update, people in the game chat like to ask you what you think of the new plane, and my answer for the Vixen is always good, with teammates. And it really is true. I've gotten an ace in this plane before, which is no small feat, since the plane only has 4 missiles and an ace requires 5. But I only got the ace because I looked for teammates who were in trouble, and in general, they looked after me. So if you can avoid it, I highly recommend not spending 2 missiles on the same guy who already knows you're trying to kill him. Disengage, go look for a teammate getting teamed up on. Their being alive is what you depend on for both your being alive and getting kills. This plane is a support plane, so I highly recommend you don't aggress on enemies you don't think you can kill. Finally, you'd be wise to ignore the radar warning receiver unless you've been up-the-aired. Almost no plane at your BR has a radar, much less any radar-guided missiles. So that's about it for this guide on the Sea Vixen. If you liked it, YouTube has been out for like 16 years now, motherfucker, you know where the like button is, come on. You owe me a subscription just for me having to say that. It's worth it anyway. I post content like maybe twice a year and very sporadically, but hey, it's always good stuff. Thanks for watching.